I thought my wedding day would be perfect. After 27 years of living in my sister Amanda's shadow, I finally had something that was completely mine. Marcus, my amazing husband-to-be, loved me unconditionally. But as I stood there in my white dress watching my maid of honor fix her lipstick one more time, something felt wrong. Amanda had that look again, the same one she had when we were kids, and she wanted my toys. I should have known she would not let me have this day. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below, and do not forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, you will want to hear how this wedding day from heaven turned into absolute chaos. Growing up in suburban Ohio, I always knew I was different from my family. My parents, Richard and Susan, seemed to think the sun rose and set on my younger sister, Amanda. She was 3 years younger than me, but somehow she always managed to be the center of attention. When we were kids, if I got good grades, Amanda would suddenly have a crisis that needed immediate attention. If I made friends, Amanda would charm them away within weeks. My parents always told me I needed to be the bigger person, the understanding older sister who sacrificed for family harmony. I remember one particular incident when I was 14. I had spent months working on a science project about solar energy. The night before it was due, I found Amanda in my room cutting up my poster board with scissors. When I confronted her, she burst into tears and ran to our parents. They scolded me for leaving my project where Amanda could reach it and told me I should have been more responsible. I had to stay up all night recreating everything, and I still got marked down for being late. That night, I learned that fairness was not something I could expect in my family. Amanda continued this pattern throughout high school. She would sabotage my relationships, spread rumors about me to my friends, and somehow always emerge as the victim when I tried to defend myself. Our parents never saw through her act. They thought she was sensitive and misunderstood while I was too serious and unforgiving. I learned to keep my mouth shut and handle problems on my own. It was easier than fighting a battle I could never win. When I turned 18 and left for college, I felt like I could finally breathe. I studied marketing and discovered I was actually good at building genuine relationships when someone was not actively undermining me. I made friends who valued my loyalty and honesty. For the first time in my life, I felt like I mattered. 3 years ago, everything changed when I met Marcus at the marketing firm where I had just started working. He was a graphic designer, tall, with kind brown eyes and the most genuine smile I had ever seen. Marcus was everything I had never dared to hope for in a partner. He was patient, thoughtful, and he actually listened when I spoke. More importantly, he saw through people's facades and valued authenticity above everything else. Our relationship developed slowly and naturally. Marcus would bring me coffee during late work sessions and stay to help me brainstorm campaigns. He made me laugh in a way I had forgotten was possible. When he met my family 6 months into our relationship, I was nervous, but hopeful. Maybe they would finally see that I deserved happiness too. Amanda immediately latched onto Marcus with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. She would call him by pet names, touch his arm when she talked, and find excuses to text him directly instead of going through me. She would show up at our apartment, unannounced, always when Marcus was there, always with some emergency that required his attention. Marcus was too polite to tell her to back off, and I was too afraid of being called jealous and possessive to say anything. During family dinners, Amanda would monopolize conversations with Marcus, asking him about his work, his interests, his dreams. She would position herself next to him and laugh too loudly at everything he said. My parents thought it was sweet that she was trying to bond with my boyfriend. They never noticed how Amanda would subtly put me down in front of him, or how she would change the subject whenever I tried to contribute to their conversations. 2 years into our relationship, Marcus proposed to me during a quiet evening at home. He had planned something simple and intimate, which was exactly what I wanted. The ring was perfect, a vintage piece he had found at an antique store because he knew I preferred meaningful things over flashy displays. I was happier than I had ever been in my life. Planning our wedding became a source of stress I had not anticipated. My parents insisted that Amanda should be my maid of honor since she was my only sister. I wanted to choose my college roommate, Sarah, who had been my closest friend for years, but the family pressure was overwhelming. Against my better judgment, I asked Amanda to be my maid of honor, and she accepted with enthusiasm that should have been my first warning. From the moment Amanda agreed to be in my wedding, strange things started happening. The florist called to say someone had canceled our order, claiming to speak for me. The venue coordinator was confused because someone matching my description had come in to change our menu to options I was allergic to. Each time I had to spend hours fixing problems I had not created. Amanda always seemed genuinely surprised and concerned when I told her about these issues. She would offer to help solve them, which made me feel guilty for suspecting her. The final week before the wedding, Amanda's behavior became even more concerning. She started texting Marcus directly about wedding details, claiming she wanted to coordinate a surprise for me. When I asked Marcus about it, he said she was asking about my favorite flowers and where I liked to shop, presumably for a maid of honor gift. Her messages seemed innocent enough, so I tried to push down my growing unease. 3 days before the wedding, Amanda suggested we have a girls' night out to celebrate. During dinner, she spent the entire evening talking about how marriage was such a big commitment and how she worried that people sometimes settled for the first person who showed them attention. She kept glancing at me when she said things like this, and I started to realize that her words were not random observations. They were calculated strikes designed to plant seeds of doubt in my mind. The night before the wedding, I could not sleep. Every instinct I had was screaming that something was wrong, but I could not put my finger on what it was. Amanda had been the picture of helpfulness all week, confirming details with vendors and organizing the bridal party. On the surface, everything looked perfect. But I had lived with Amanda long enough to know that her helpfulness always came with a price. My wedding day started at 6 a.m, with hair and makeup appointments for the bridal party. I woke up feeling excited despite my anxiety from the night before. This was finally my day, and I was determined to enjoy it. Sarah and my other bridesmaids arrived on time, chatting excitedly and helping me feel more relaxed. But by 8 o'clock, there was no sign of Amanda. I called her phone repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail. At 9:30, she finally showed up looking frazzled and apologetic. She claimed her car had broken down and she had to wait for a tow truck. The story seemed plausible, but something about her demeanor felt off. She was too animated, too eager to explain every detail of her morning mishap. The bigger problem was that Amanda had taken it upon herself to replace my makeup artist. She arrived with a woman I had never met, claiming that my original artist had called in sick, and this was her replacement. The new makeup artist seemed inexperienced and kept apologizing as she worked. When she finished with my face, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. My makeup was heavy and dramatic, nothing like the natural look I had specifically requested and paid for. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom and redo most of my makeup, which put us behind schedule. Meanwhile, Amanda was fluttering around the other bridesmaids, making sure their makeup was perfect and offering helpful suggestions. The contrast was not lost on me, but I did not want to cause a scene on my wedding day. While I was fixing my makeup, Amanda offered to help me into my dress. As she was zipping it up, she mentioned that she had brought coffee for everyone and set mine on the table near my backup dress. When I came out of the bathroom, I found coffee spilled all over my carefully preserved backup gown. Amanda was apologetic and helpful, immediately grabbing towels and offering to pay for professional cleaning. But the damage was done, and we did not have time to address it. By the time we arrived at the church, I was feeling stressed and running late. The photographer was waiting, and we had to rush through pictures that were supposed to be relaxed and joyful. Amanda seemed to have recovered her composure and was posing beautifully for photos, but I felt frazzled and unprepared for the most important day of my life. During the ceremony, I noticed that Amanda was not standing in the position we had practiced during rehearsal. Instead of staying slightly behind me as we had planned, she kept moving to positions where she would be more visible to the guests. When I tried to catch her eye to signal her to move back, she would smile and wave at people in the congregation as if she was the star of the show. The most shocking moment came when Pastor Williams reached the traditional part of the ceremony, where he asks if anyone has objections to the marriage. It is supposed to be a formality, a moment of silence, before moving on to the vows. Instead, Amanda loudly cleared her throat and said, "Actually." The entire congregation turned to look at her, and I felt my heart stop. After a pause that felt like forever, she smiled brightly and said, "Just kidding. Please continue." Nervous laughter rippled through the church, but I was mortified. This was my wedding ceremony, not a comedy show. Marcus squeezed my hand reassuringly, but I could see the confusion in his eyes too. Amanda had turned our sacred moment into her personal entertainment, and there was nothing I could do about it without making an even bigger scene. During the ring exchange, Amanda managed to create another disruption. As Marcus was placing the ring on my finger, she somehow bumped into him, causing him to drop my wedding band. It rolled across the altar steps, and Marcus had to get on his hands and knees to retrieve it, while our guests watched in uncomfortable silence. Amanda immediately apologized profusely, claiming she had lost her balance, but I knew better. Nothing Amanda did was ever an accident. By the time we were pronounced husband and wife, I felt like I had survived a battle rather than celebrated a wedding, but I hoped the reception would be better. I was wrong. The reception started smoothly enough. Our guests were seated, the food was being served, and Marcus and I were finally able to relax slightly. We were seated at the head table with the wedding party, and for a few minutes everything felt normal. Amanda was chatting pleasantly with the other bridesmaids, and I started to think maybe I had been paranoid about her intentions. That piece lasted exactly 20 minutes. As we were finishing our salads, Amanda suddenly stood up and tapped her fork against her wine glass. I had specifically told the wedding party that there would be no impromptu speeches beyond the ones we had planned and rehearsed, but Amanda was already commanding the attention of our 150 guests, smiling as if she had every right to hijack our reception. "I know this was not on the program," she began, her voice carrying clearly across the room, "but I just had to say a few words about my sister Kate." My stomach dropped. I tried to catch her eye to signal her to sit down, but she was looking directly at the guests, not at me. "Kate has always been the responsible one in our family." Amanda continued, her tone sweet, but with an edge I recognized. "She has made so many sacrifices over the years, always putting everyone else first. Sometimes I wonder if she even knows how to put herself first, or if she just takes whatever she thinks she deserves." The room was completely silent now, and I could feel the tension building. Marcus reached for my hand under the table, his jaw clenched. Amanda kept talking, seemingly oblivious to the discomfort she was creating. "I just hope that marriage will help Kate learn to fight for what she really wants, instead of just accepting what is easy and available." She raised her wine glass in my direction with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "To Kate and Marcus, may you both get exactly what you deserve." The toast was met with scattered, uncomfortable applause. Several guests were looking at each other with confusion, clearly sensing that something was wrong, but not understanding what had just happened. My parents were sitting at their table looking proud of Amanda for making such a thoughtful speech. They had completely missed the subtle cruelty in her words. As the evening progressed, Amanda's behavior became increasingly erratic. She was drinking heavily, which was unusual for her, and becoming louder and more attention-seeking with each glass of wine. She was flirting shamelessly with the groomsmen, interrupting conversations, and positioning herself in every photo opportunity. When it came time for our first dance as husband and wife, Marcus and I took the floor to our song At Last by Etta James. For a moment, as Marcus held me close and we swayed together, I felt like everything was going to be okay. This was our moment, our beginning, and nothing could take that away from us. I was wrong. Halfway through the song, Amanda appeared beside us on the dance floor. She was swaying to the music and smiling as if this was perfectly normal behavior. Marcus and I tried to continue dancing, but she was moving closer and closer to us, disrupting our space and our moment. Then, without any warning, Amanda stepped directly between Marcus and me. She threw her arms around Marcus's neck and pressed her body against his, looking up into his face with an expression I had never seen before. "I should have been the one," she said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. Before either Marcus or I could react, she pulled his face down to hers and kissed him full on the mouth. The music stopped. Our guests stood frozen in shocked silence. Marcus immediately pushed Amanda away from him, but the damage was done. My sister had kissed my husband at our wedding reception in front of our family and friends and declared that she should have been in my place. I stood there in my wedding dress, feeling like the entire world had collapsed around me. This was not just a moment of poor judgment or too much alcohol. This was a deliberate act of cruelty designed to humiliate me on the most important day of my life. Amanda had been planning this moment, waiting for the perfect opportunity to destroy my happiness in the most public way possible. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then Amanda started crying loud, dramatic sobs that immediately drew sympathy from our guests. She was the picture of remorse and embarrassment, a woman who had simply made a terrible mistake under the influence of emotion and alcohol. But I knew better. I had seen that calculating look in her eyes right before she kissed Marcus. This was not a mistake. This was the culmination of everything she had been building toward since I announced my engagement. Marcus immediately stepped toward me, his face filled with anger and confusion. He reached for my hands and started to say something, but I could not focus on his words. All I could see was my sister crying dramatically, while our guests murmured among themselves trying to process what they had just witnessed. Before I could decide how to respond, my parents appeared at my side. Instead of comforting me or addressing Amanda's behavior, my father put his hand on my arm and said quietly, "Kate, do not make a scene. She has been drinking and she is obviously upset. This is not the time for drama." My mother nodded in agreement, her eyes pleading with me to be reasonable. "Honey, you know how emotional Amanda gets. She did not mean anything by it. You are married now, and that is what matters. Do not let this ruin your beautiful day." I stared at them in disbelief. My sister had just kissed my husband at our wedding reception, and they were asking me not to make a scene. They were more concerned about protecting Amanda from the consequences of her actions than they were about supporting me through the most humiliating moment of my life. Amanda, meanwhile, had collected herself enough to approach me with tears still streaming down her face. "Kate, I am so sorry," she said, reaching for my hands. "I do not know what came over me. I have just been so emotional lately, and seeing you so happy made me realize how lonely I am. I never meant to hurt you." Her words were perfectly crafted to generate sympathy and make me look cruel if I did not immediately forgive her. She was positioning herself as the victim of her own emotions rather than taking responsibility for a deliberate act of sabotage. And I could see that it was working. Several of our guests were nodding sympathetically, clearly feeling sorry for poor, emotional Amanda, who had simply made a mistake. But Marcus was not buying it. He stepped protectively in front of me and addressed Amanda directly. "That was completely inappropriate," he said firmly. "You need to leave now." Amanda's tears increased, and she looked around desperately for support. "Marcus, please, I am so sorry. I would never want to hurt Kate. I love her. She is my sister." My father stepped forward, then putting himself between Marcus and Amanda. "Now hold on," he said to Marcus. "I understand you are upset, but Amanda is family. She made a mistake, but she apologized. We need to handle this with compassion, not accusations." I watched this exchange feeling like I was in a nightmare. My husband was trying to defend me. My sister was playing the victim, and my parents were prioritizing her feelings over mine. Our wedding guests were witnessing our family dysfunction on display, and I was powerless to stop it. That was when I made my decision. I looked at Amanda, then at my parents, and finally at the guests who were watching our family implode with uncomfortable fascination. "You are right," I said clearly, my voice carrying across the room. "This is not the time or place for drama. Amanda, please leave my reception." Amanda's face crumpled, and she looked to our parents for support. "Kate, please," she whispered. "I am your sister." "You were my sister," I replied. "But sisters do not sabotage each other's weddings. Sisters do not kiss each other's husbands. You made your choice when you decided to humiliate me in front of everyone I care about." My mother stepped forward. Then her face flushed with anger. "Kate, you are being completely unreasonable. Amanda made a mistake, but you are destroying this family with your selfishness. How can you be so unforgiving toward your own sister?" That was the moment I realized that nothing would ever change. My parents would always choose Amanda over me no matter what she did or how much she hurt me. They would always find a way to make her actions my fault, my responsibility, my failure to be understanding enough. "You are right," I said to my mother. "I am destroying this family. Consider it destroyed." Marcus and I left our own wedding reception that night, driving to our hotel in silence, while our families and friends tried to make sense of what had just happened. As we sat in our honeymoon suite, still wearing our wedding clothes, I made another decision that would change everything. I was done being the understanding sister, the reasonable daughter, the person who sacrificed her own happiness for family peace. Amanda had shown me exactly who she was, and my parents had shown me exactly where their loyalty lay. Now it was time for me to show them who I could be when I stopped playing by their rules. The next morning, I started making phone calls. The first call I made was to Marcus, even though he was sitting right next to me. I needed to hear him say the words out loud, needed to know that we were truly united in this. "Are you with me?" I asked him. "Whatever I do next, whatever consequences come from this, are you going to stand by me?" Marcus took my hands and looked directly into my eyes. "Kate, what Amanda did was unforgivable. What your parents did by defending her was almost worse. You have spent your entire life being the bigger person, and where has it gotten you? I am with you completely, whatever you decide to do." That conversation gave me the strength I needed for what came next. I had spent 27 years collecting evidence of Amanda's behavior, and I was finally ready to use it. My first discovery came when I decided to go through Amanda's social media posts from the past year. What I found was a pattern of passive-aggressive comments about my relationship with Marcus. She had posted photos of herself with captions like, "Still waiting for someone who deserves me," and "Some people settle for good enough, but I know my worth." The posts were subtle enough that most people would not have made the connection, but the timeline was clear. She had been publicly undermining my relationship for months. More importantly, I found evidence of her direct attempts to interfere with my wedding planning. I contacted our florist and venue coordinator and asked them to describe the person who had made the cancellations and changes. Both described a woman who looked like me, but with different colored hair and a more aggressive demeanor. Amanda had been impersonating me for months, systematically sabotaging my wedding plans and forcing me to spend extra time and money fixing problems she had created. But the most damaging evidence came when I decided to look into Amanda's employment situation. She worked as an administrative assistant at a mid-size accounting firm, and something about her recent spending habits had been bothering me. Amanda had been buying expensive designer clothes and taking luxury vacations that seemed far beyond her salary range. I called my friend Jennifer, who worked in human resources at a similar company, and asked her about procedures for reporting financial irregularities. She explained how to identify signs of embezzlement and suggested that I contact Amanda's employer if I had genuine concerns about illegal activity. That afternoon, I did something I never thought I would do. I went through Amanda's trash. What I found there changed everything. Amanda had been throwing away credit card statements and receipts that showed she had been using her company's credit card for personal expenses. Designer handbags, expensive dinners, spa treatments. Even her car payment had all been charged to her employer's account. The evidence was overwhelming and clearly documented. I spent the next 3 days building a comprehensive case against Amanda. I organized photos of her social media posts, documented the timeline of her sabotage efforts, and compiled the financial evidence of her embezzlement. I also researched restraining order procedures and gathered witness statements from our wedding guests about her behavior at the reception. On Thursday morning, exactly 1 week after my wedding, I walked into the offices of Harrison and Associates, where Amanda worked as an administrative assistant. I asked to speak with the Human Resources Director and presented a folder containing copies of all the evidence I had gathered. The HR Director, a professional woman in her 50s, listened carefully as I explained the situation. I showed her the credit card statements, the receipts, and the pattern of unauthorized charges. I explained that I was Amanda's sister and that I had discovered this evidence while going through her personal belongings after a family dispute. The company launched an immediate investigation. By Friday afternoon, they had confirmed that Amanda had embezzled over $15,000 in company funds over the past 8 months. She was terminated immediately and informed that they would be pressing criminal charges. That same Friday, I filed for a restraining order against Amanda citing harassment, emotional abuse, and interference with my marriage. I provided the court with witness statements from our wedding guests, copies of her harassing social media posts, and documentation of her sabotage efforts. The temporary restraining order was granted immediately. But I was not finished yet. I also contacted a lawyer about filing a civil lawsuit against Amanda for intentional infliction of emotional distress and defamation of character. My attorney explained that while emotional distress cases were difficult to prove, I had an unusually strong case given the public nature of Amanda's actions and the documented pattern of harassment. The final step was the hardest one. I changed the locks on my apartment, blocked Amanda's phone number, and sent a registered letter to my parents explaining that I would not be participating in any family functions where Amanda was present. I made it clear that they could have a relationship with both of us, but not at the same time, not in the same places, and not with my participation in their efforts to normalize her behavior. The response from my family was swift and predictable. My mother called me crying, begging me to reconsider. My father left angry voicemails accusing me of being vindictive and destroying our family over a moment of poor judgment. Several relatives reached out to tell me I was overreacting and that family should forgive family no matter what. But something interesting happened too. Friends who had witnessed Amanda's behavior over the years started reaching out to share their own stories. Marcus's family, who had always been warm and welcoming, became even more protective and supportive. Several of our wedding guests contacted me to say they had been uncomfortable with Amanda's speech and behavior, but had not known how to address it at the time. Most surprisingly, some of Amanda's co-workers reached out after news of her termination spread. They shared stories of Amanda taking credit for their work, spreading rumors about colleagues, and creating a hostile work environment. They thanked me for coming forward because it had given them the courage to report their own experiences with her behavior. 3 weeks after my wedding, Amanda was arrested on embezzlement charges. She tried to contact me through mutual friends, claiming she needed to explain her side of the story. But I had heard Amanda's explanations my entire life, and I finally understood that they were just more manipulation tactics designed to avoid consequences for her actions. The restraining order was made permanent after a court hearing, where Amanda's behavior at my wedding was documented in legal records. She was required to stay at least 100 yards away from me, Marcus, and our home. She was also prohibited from contacting me directly or through third parties. The civil lawsuit took longer to resolve, but eventually Amanda's insurance company settled out of court. The financial compensation was not significant, but the legal acknowledgement that her behavior constituted harassment and intentional emotional distress was validating in a way I had not expected. 6 months after my wedding, Amanda pleaded guilty to the embezzlement charges and was sentenced to community service and restitution payments. She lost her job, her reputation, and her ability to work in the accounting field. More importantly, she lost her power to manipulate and control me. The most difficult part of this entire process was accepting that my parents would never change their position. They continued to believe that Amanda was the victim of my vindictiveness rather than the perpetrator of years of abuse. They made it clear that they would not attend any future family events where Amanda was not welcome, which meant they would not be part of my life going forward. Choosing to cut contact with my parents was the hardest decision I had ever made, but it was also the most liberating. For the first time in my adult life, I was not walking on eggshells, not managing someone else's emotions, not sacrificing my own needs for the sake of family peace. Marcus and I took our delayed honeymoon 6 months after our wedding. We spent 2 weeks in Italy exploring small villages and eating incredible food and talking about our future without the constant stress of family drama. It was the peaceful beginning to our marriage that we should have had from the start. Today, 2 years after my wedding, my life is completely different. I have learned to set boundaries and enforce them. I have built a chosen family of friends who genuinely care about my well-being. I have a marriage based on mutual respect and support rather than obligation and manipulation. I still have moments of sadness about losing my family, but I have learned that family is not just about blood relationships. Family is about love, support, and choosing to build each other up rather than tear each other down. The people in my life now are my true family, and they have shown me what healthy relationships actually look like. Sometimes people ask me if I regret my decision to cut Amanda and my parents out of my life. They suggest that family should forgive and forget, that time heals all wounds, that I should be the bigger person one more time. But I have learned that being the bigger person does not mean accepting abuse. It does not mean enabling destructive behavior or sacrificing your own mental health for the sake of keeping peace. Sometimes being the bigger person means protecting yourself and the people you love from those who would harm you, even if those people share your DNA. Amanda taught me an important lesson on my wedding day, though it was not the lesson she intended to teach. She showed me that there are people in this world who will try to destroy your happiness simply because they cannot stand to see you succeed. She taught me that some people will never change no matter how much patience and forgiveness you offer them. But more importantly, she taught me that I have the power to choose who gets to be part of my story. I can choose to surround myself with people who celebrate my successes rather than sabotage them. I can choose to build relationships based on mutual respect rather than learned helplessness. I can choose to protect my peace rather than sacrifice it for people who will never appreciate the sacrifice. My wedding day did not go as planned, but my marriage has been everything I hoped it would be. Marcus and I have built a life together based on honesty, support, and genuine partnership. We have learned to face challenges together rather than allowing outside forces to divide us. We have created our own traditions and our own definition of family. Sometimes, the family you choose loves you better than the one you are born into, and that is perfectly okay. What would you have done in my situation? Do you think I went too far? Or do you think I should have done more? Let me know in the comments below your thoughts about setting boundaries with toxic family members. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming difficult relationships. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to protect yourself even from family. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you deserve relationships that lift you up rather than tear you down. Take care of yourselves out there.